Breaking from Canada's Parliament tonight, a Conservative MP says, I want to build the country, not tear it down, and switches parties.
Political earthquake in Canada. A Conservative MP crosses the floor. Prime Minister Carney is now just 2 seats away from absolute majority.
Breaking tonight, Canada's political landscape just shifted dramatically. One Conservative MP didn't hesitate, he crossed the floor. And Prime Minister Mark Carney's minority government just moved 2 seats away from absolute power. Picture this. Tuesday evening, November 4th, 2025. Parliament Hill is buzzing with budget day energy. Finance Minister prepares final documents. Opposition MPs sharpen their talking points. Everything seems routine. And then, Nova Scotia MP Chris d'Entremont walks into Mark Carney's office and says 5 words that change everything. I'm joining your caucus. Everyone believed Carney's minority government would struggle through years of opposition gridlock. Political analysts expected Conservative unity to remain solid. Parliamentary experts assumed no MP would risk career suicide by crossing the floor in this political climate. They were all utterly incorrect, because Wednesday morning, standing in Ottawa's press conference room, Mark Carney made a statement that electrified Parliament Hill. Chris's decision to join the government caucus at this crucial moment for our country is exceptionally valuable and important. Translation? The Liberals just moved from 169 seats to 170 seats. They're now 2 seats away from the magic number 172, the threshold for majority government. And what happened next reveals exactly why one MP's decision might trigger a domino effect that transforms Canadian politics while Conservative unity crumbles. Dear viewers, you need to understand what's actually happening here. This isn't just about one politician changing parties. This is about the fundamental calculation every opposition MP is making right now. Do I stay with a leader focused on knocking things down, or do I join a government that claims to be building things up? Let me take you inside d'Entremont's thinking. Over the last number of months, I wasn't feeling that I was aligned with the ideals of what the leader of the opposition had been talking about, he told reporters Wednesday. But here's what makes this devastating. He didn't stop there. It's time to actually try to lead a country, to try to make it better and not try to knock it down, not to continue to be negative. Read that again. A sitting Conservative MP just publicly stated that his own party leadership is negative and focused on destruction rather than construction. That's not a policy disagreement. That's a philosophical rejection. That's a former colleague essentially saying, I can't defend this approach to Canadians anymore. And then d'Entremont dropped the nuclear option. When asked if other MPs share his concerns, he said, there probably are those that are in the same boat. Let that sink in. He's not speculating. He's confirming. Other Conservative MPs are having the same conversations, facing the same internal conflict, weighing the same decision. How many? We don't know. But d'Entremont knows. He's talked to them. And now every Conservative MP wakes up wondering if their colleague sitting next to them is the next to leave. The Conservative Party response? Predictable and devastating. They called d'Entremont's move motivated by personal grievance over not being elected deputy speaker. They questioned how he could support a Liberal budget after campaigning on affordability. And Wednesday morning, Conservative MP Jasraj Singh Hallan called d'Entremont a coward. Here's why that response backfires spectacularly. By attacking d'Entremont personally rather than addressing his substantive criticism about negative leadership, Conservatives just validated his entire argument. They proved his point. Instead of saying, here's our positive vision, they said, you're a coward and a sellout. That's exactly the negativity d'Entremont was talking about. And every Conservative MP watching this exchange is thinking, if I express concerns, will they attack me too? If I suggest we need a more positive message, will I be called a coward? Now let's talk about what this means for Mark Carney. The man is 2 seats away from majority government. 2. That's 1 more floor crossing, or 2, or potentially 3 if d'Entremont's hint about other MPs in the same boat proves accurate. Carney called d'Entremont's decision exceptionally valuable at the budget press conference. But here's what he didn't say. This is exceptionally strategic. D'Entremont crossed on budget day, not a random Tuesday, not during a slow news cycle. Budget day, when every political reporter in Canada is paying attention, when the government is presenting its economic vision, when Carney needs to project strength and momentum. The timing transforms the narrative from struggling minority government tables budget to growing government caucus tables. Ambitious budget with increasing parliamentary support. But let's examine d'Entremont's stated reasoning. He said the budget hits the priorities I have heard most in my writing, to build strong community infrastructure and grow a stronger economy. Notice something? That's a constituency-first argument, not ideology, not party loyalty, not career advancement. He's saying, my voters want infrastructure and economic growth, and this budget delivers that. That reasoning is politically bulletproof. Try attacking an MP for putting their constituents' priorities first. It doesn't work. It makes you look like you care more about party discipline than people's needs. The Conservatives learned this Wednesday when their attacks landed flat. Here's what political strategists are whispering in Ottawa tonight. If you're a Conservative MP in a riding where voters want infrastructure investment, where constituents are asking about economic growth, where people are tired of opposition negativity, you're now facing a calculation. Do I vote against a budget my constituents want? Do I defend a party brand that's increasingly toxic in my riding? Or do I follow d'Entremont's path? And remember, d'Entremont represented Acadie-Annapolis, a riding he won as a Conservative. This wasn't a Liberal stronghold where an MP was always ideologically misaligned. This was a Conservative seat, which means other Conservative MPs in similar ridings are thinking, if he made this calculation, maybe I should too. The House of Commons math is now fascinating. Liberals hold 170 seats. New Democrats hold approximately 25. Bloc Québécois holds roughly 32. Conservatives hold approximately 115 after d'Entremont's departure. For any legislation to pass, Carney needs 172 votes. Currently, that requires either NDP support or Bloc support or a combination of smaller parties. But if two more MPs cross the floor, Carney has majority government. He no longer needs to negotiate with opposition parties. He no longer needs to compromise on legislation. He no longer faces the threat of confidence votes toppling his government. 2 MPs. That's the gap between negotiated governance and absolute parliamentary control. Now, I want you to consider the psychological pressure this creates. Every Conservative MP knows they might be sitting next to the next person to leave. Every caucus meeting now has an undertone of suspicion. Every policy debate includes the question, if we take this position, will it trigger another departure? That's not sustainable. That's not how you build party unity. That's how you create a self-fulfilling prophecy where the fear of defections causes the exact behavior that triggers defections. d'Entremont served as deputy speaker from 2021 through the April election. He had institutional knowledge, parliamentary experience, and respect across party lines. Losing him isn't just losing one vote. It's losing credibility. It's losing the ability to say our caucus is united. It's losing the narrative that Conservatives are the government in waiting. When d'Entremont was asked about Halland calling him a coward, his response was devastating in its restraint. I think they should look at themselves and see if they're offering the right thing to Canadians, of trying to build for the world. He didn't get defensive. He didn't attack back. He turned it into a challenge. Are you offering what Canada needs? That's masterclass political communication. Instead of defending his decision, he questioned their approach. Instead of justifying his choice, he challenged their vision. And every voter watching thinks, that's a reasonable question. What are the Conservatives offering besides opposition? Here's what happens next. Carney's government tables legislation. Conservative MPs have to decide, do I vote against measures my constituents want just to maintain party discipline? Every vote becomes a test. Every policy decision becomes a potential trigger for the next MP to think, maybe I should reconsider my position. The budget d'Entremont cited includes infrastructure spending for communities like his. It includes economic growth initiatives. If you're a Conservative MP representing a rural riding that desperately needs infrastructure investment, and you vote against it purely because of party loyalty, how do you explain that to constituents? You can say, I oppose the Liberals, but voters will ask, even when they're delivering what we asked for? That's the trap Carney just set. By making the budget constituency friendly, by focusing on infrastructure and economic growth rather than ideological positions, he's made it very difficult for opposition MPs to vote against it without looking like they're putting party before people. And d'Entremont's floor crossing provides the permission structure. He showed it's possible. He demonstrated you won't be politically destroyed. In fact, Carney welcomed him publicly, called his decision exceptionally valuable, and gave him instant relevance and purpose. What Conservative MP isn't noticing that contrast? On one side, you have a party calling you a coward if you leave. On the other, you have a prime minister calling you valuable and important if you join. Which environment would you choose? Political observers are now watching specific MPs. Who represents ridings similar to Acadie-Annapolis? Who has expressed frustration with opposition tactics? Who's been quiet during recent Conservative strategy debates? Those are the names being whispered in parliamentary hallways tonight. The Conservative Party's statement that d'Entremont let his own grievances of not getting elected Deputy Speaker get in the way of his promises is strategically disastrous. It suggests any MP with career disappointments might be vulnerable to leaving. How many Conservative MPs didn't get the committee position they wanted, didn't get the critic role they sought, didn't get the leadership attention they expected? By framing d'Entremont's decision as grievance-based, Conservatives accidentally highlighted that grievances exist throughout their caucus. And now every MP with any disappointment is wondering, am I one bad day away from reconsidering my options? Dear viewers, between Tuesday evening and Wednesday morning, something extraordinary happened in Canadian politics. A minority government gained strength. An opposition party revealed internal fractures. And one MP, strategic and principled, became the catalyst for a potential realignment. This isn't just about Chris d'Entremont crossing the floor. This is about the fundamental question facing every opposition MP. Are we building or breaking? Are we offering solutions or just opposition? Are we putting constituents first or party discipline? Mark Carney is now 2 seats from majority, 2 conversations away from transforming Canadian governance, 2 MPs away from rendering opposition parties irrelevant for years, and every Conservative MP wakes up tomorrow knowing they might be one of those 2. They might be the one who tips the balance. They might be the one who gives Carney absolute power. The pressure is extraordinary. The calculation is brutal. And the next few weeks will reveal whether d'Entremont was an isolated case or the beginning of a flood. Because if one more MP crosses, we're one away from majority. And at that point, the psychological pressure becomes overwhelming. Nobody wants to be the MP who handed Carney absolute power. But paradoxically, that fear might trigger the exact behavior it's trying to prevent. Welcome to Canadian politics, where one decision on budget day might have just changed everything, where one MP's conscience might have triggered a cascade, where a minority government 2 seats away from majority is suddenly looking very different than it did 48 hours ago. The Conservatives called d'Entremont a coward, but political courage isn't about staying with your team no matter what. Political courage is about making the decision you believe serves your constituents best, even when it costs you personally. And right now, somewhere in Parliament Hill, another Conservative MP is having that exact conversation with themselves, weighing their options, calculating their future, wondering if they should make the same call d'Entremont made. Carney knows this. That's why he was so publicly welcoming. That's why he called it exceptionally valuable. He's not just talking to d'Entremont, he's talking to the next one, and the one after that. This is how minority governments become majorities, not through elections, through attrition, strategy, and making the opposition's position untenable 1 MP at a time. Canada just witnessed political chess at the highest level, and the game is far from over.